Hello YouTube, Dave Smiles Flies again. Today's how-to pattern is going to be on a freshwater shrimp. I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to be, how do I explain this? I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to be your run-of-the-mill everyday shrimp. I kind of developed my own way of doing things. Not to change anything up, it's just certain things tires like, other things they don't, and I've developed my own liking. So bear with me as I do it. I have a size 10 shrimp scud hook in here. It's a Kona, which is made by Arex. Yeah, right here they are. They're called Universal Scud and Shrimp. Right there. And they are damn good hooks. For real, they're really nice. You get 30 in a pack instead of 25, and I think it's like $7.99. Which some of you guys might think it's expensive, but when you realize these are made with part black nickel and they're very super strong hooks, it does make a difference, especially to some fishermen. You don't want to lose a fish because a hook broke. That's the last thing you want. But anyhow, the universal shrimp pattern. This is not the universal. This is the freshwater pattern. Basically for trout. Although I'm certain that other fish might take it, you know. If you go for some, maybe if you're out fishing for crappie or bluegill or perch, I'm sure you could catch the occasional one of them, but I think they're most effective in the streams and for trout. Wow, this hook is very slippery. Good Lord. Okay, now we're getting a little start. So, obviously, I'm making the thread base. I used to call it a thread bed, but I've gotten too many comments saying that it's a thread base, not a thread bed. You know, because you got all those professionals out there that have to tell everybody how to just say things. I didn't know that part of fly tying meant I had to be an English major. But nonetheless, you want to wrap your thread base well into the bend of the hook in the back. So this is the eye, this is called the shank, and then the rest is the bend, and then there's the hook itself with or without the barb. I'm not sure. These might be barbless. I don't even check anymore. The only time I'm checking is if I have a request from somebody who buys flies and says I want barbless, and then I check. Because I have a good assortment of both. Eventually, I'd like to have it to where I have nothing but barbless, but that's not the case right now. I think I have more barbed stuff now. I've got, no joke, I've got tens of thousands of hooks. So, okay. And I don't know how far advanced anybody is that's watching, but what you want to do is the first thing that you go to wrap up will be the last thing that you tie in. So you got to kind of do it in order. Did I say that right? Anyhow, what I'm getting at is you have to tie everything in a certain way to make sure it's going to work right. So basically the last things you're going to wrap, you want to tie them in first. So I'm going to go for that right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is for my segmentation on this one, I'm going to be using a tan colored D-rib. If you give me 1 second and let me catch this in, I will grab the bottle. And the spool. It's right here. It's vinyl rib from UTC right there. That's what I'm using for the segmentation. Which, for this fly more than any other, that's very, very, very important. And the reason why I say that is because you're making the legs for it too. And if you segment them, it makes them look like they're separated in their own way. And I don't know, these things are just so neat. And they do work very, very well for trout. I mean, there's no question. Anyhow, I want to wrap this well into the bend of the hook, because we're trying to build the body and make it look as realistic as possible. I'm going to come back up, and instead of cutting this out, I'm just going to wrap that right in with it, if it allows. And I'm going to come the whole way back up to the head of the fly again, so I have a little bit of thread up there for everything to stick to when I pull it forward and tie it through. Okay, so I'm going to come back to about midway. Look, make sure that's where I want it. That's the last thing that I'm going to be wrapping. Next thing I'll be needing to tie in is the shell back. And for this, I'm using what's called Baby Bugback from Fly Tier's Dungeon. I'm doing that because of the color. Normally I use like the Gatorback from the flysmith.co, which is real nice stuff. But anyway, this is what I prefer for this pattern. And for my I started working on my own style of mealworm because of the color of this stuff that I found, and it just makes such a beautiful mealworm. If you want to see that, well, no, I guess, yeah, I tied one. There's one in here. I tied one of those for you guys. Turned out real nice. And believe me, it's not all just because of me tying. It has a lot to do with the color of the vinyl, or as he calls it, the baby bug back. I kind of think that's a cool baby got back. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm going to take this back to about where I tied this to, well into the bend. Again, I'm sorry I'm saying that so much, but anyhow, I got that to where I wanted. I'm going to wrap back up again. Now, I'm going to tie in what I'm going to use for the legs, which in this case, I'm going to be using 2 different colors of saddle hackle. And this is where it comes off the pelt. You want to pull this all back and strip a lot of these little, what do you want to call these, the little barbs. You want to get rid of the barbs, leave yourself a little bit of stem. It just gives you more to work with. Like so, basically what that does is the barbs don't start flaring, or should I say start standing up on the hook right away, because you have the extra room to get the wrapping going. And what that allows me to do as a fly tyer, it allows me to get them, it gives me a chance to align the hackle so it goes up and down instead of, flaring right or left or backwards or forwards. You kind of want it to go straight up and down. So I'm going to pull that through just a little bit so I have a little bit more stem back here. And of course, I'm taking this all the way down to where I tied everything else in, well into the bend. You guys are probably going to get sick of hearing well into the bend here, so I'm just going to stop talking about it anyway. So I'm going to I'm going to get to where I need to be. Now, I'm going to stop. I'm going to come back up to the same spot about mid-hook. And don't worry about it building up bulk right here, because if you look at a real shrimp, there's a little more bulk back here anyhow. That kind of has a little bubble back. And so this is working out just the way it should. So this is just a brown color, like a furnace color almost. This is some grizzly saddle hackle, and I already had that stripped. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie it in and wrap it back to where it needs to go, because I'm not saying that again. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. Remember, it is the Lord's Day. So there we go. I'm going to go back even a little bit further with everything just to make sure it's where I want it to be. And I'm going to come the whole way back up. And this time I'm going to go the whole way to the head, because as I tie this stuff in, that's where it's going to need to go. Or real close to the eye of the hook anyway. I'm going to stop about right there because I like to leave a little bit of room so as to not crowd the eye. So I'm going to take the grizzly and see what I mean about, right now it's kind of laying flat. In this pattern, it doesn't matter if I wrap it this way. And the reason why I say that is if I wrap it this way, it's going to make it double flare. Like 2 sets of barbs are going to go up at the same time. And you kind of want as much of that as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect because they're not serving any other purpose than the legs of the shrimp. So it's not like you're putting it on a dry fly and you have to make it look beautiful, which is what you have to do on dry flies, if you can. And something about saddle hackle, I don't know if you guys know. Cry once, buy once. One of my buddies says that all the time in his videos. Don't be afraid to spend the money. Please don't be afraid to spend the money, because this is one of those things for real. No joke. You get what you pay for. You go out and buy cheap hackle from China and you try to get it to stand up on a dry fly. I mean, you might be able to achieve that, maybe 40, 50% of the time, if you're lucky. But it's much easier to buy your real good saddle hackle. And if you want real good stuff, you want to hit up Jim's Fly Co. Jim's Fly Co. has some of the best saddle hackles and regular capes and everything. They've got all kinds. Anything feather, they've got it, man. And they do a great job. They care about it. Their customer service is top notch. Another place to get you can talk to is theflysmith.co, because he sells, I can't think of the name of it right now. Sidling Hill, I think. It's a cheaper saddle hackle, but the stem is a little thinner, thereby making it wrap better, and it also stands up more straight on the hook. It's so much easier to work with. And that's something you could check out as well. And you guys tell me in the comments if you don't like the recommendations. I do that because if I find something that's working good for me, I want to let y'all know because, hey, sharing information and helping a tire out instead of them having to wait forever to get the, to find out on their own or have one of their buddies see them. And anyway, I just like to share that information. So at this point, I like to pull my thread down so it's not bobbling around up there because I'm afraid it'll unwind. I'll lick my finger and rub it with my thumbs, and I do this. And this here, you're just pulling it down. And you really do want to do that. And if it's trying to give you a hard time, well, you just keep going with it. And it is going to give me a little bit of a hard time, I see. Probably because I wrapped it a little bit thicker than I needed to. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and not open my scissors very far. And I will just snip a lot of what's up here out. Because you don't want that flared up. Like I said, this is for legs and only legs. And I could have wrapped it back a little further than what I did so as to get a little bit of a tail, but I wasn't really worried about that because I don't know. I don't even know that they have tails, to be honest with you. I don't think they do. I've never seen one with a tail on it. Maybe a little tough to hair back there, but okay. And this with this stuff, you want to make sure it's up on the hook right, like it's straight, or should I say even. And you don't want to necessarily pull it real tight, but you don't want it to be too loose either because you don't want it slipping down around on the shank of the hook. You want it to stay up top. So I'm going to finish tying that in. And I'm going to double check it to make sure it's up there where I wanted it. Which it's trying to not be, but we're going to, as a fly tire, you have to fight back. And in this case, I've got to unwrap a little bit because it did slide over the hook a little bit. So I'm just going to work my heart out, get it back to where, there it is. There it is. Then I'm going to hold it real tight, and I'm going to give it real tight wraps in hopes that that holds it very still for me, which it did. There it is. Now it's all up top. And it won't matter here in a minute. You'll see why. So now I'm wrapping the D-rib up. And these get interesting. You know, these can fight you because they're going to slip on that, probably going to slip a little bit on top of that vinyl. You know, that baby back. It's going to make it hard for you, probably. But just don't give up. You just keep trying. Keep doing your thing. If you have to do it 2 or 3 times to get it where you want it, you did do it 2 or 3 times till you get it where you want it. I mean, you just have to fight back, like I said. And I'm going to hold that here and wrap that in good. The whole time making sure that I'm not causing the baby back vinyl to slip off the side of the hook there. And now I'm where I wanted to be. So, what's nice about vinyl, in my opinion, is you can really stretch it before, you can pull it pretty hard before you cut it. And it makes it work good. So I'm going to pull this up, give it a little bit of a stretch, get it right there. And then you can't even tell it was tied in there because, you pretty much had it cut right up to where the thread is and you can't see it. That was that one. Yeah, my thread kind of fell a little bit, but that's okay. You just keep moving on. So now I'm going to go like this and hold it over while I wrap it real tight. I'm going to build a little bit of a black head on it. That's not necessarily something you have to do. That's just something that I really think makes a fly look neat. So I go with it. And once I feel happy, pull my thread out enough to be able to use the whip finisher, which this isn't my usual whip finisher, so sometimes I have trouble with this one because it's so much bigger. Oh, and I picked up saddle hacker with it. But we're going to do this. Get it here. And then what you do, it makes a 4, and you want to put you'll be able to tell where you want to start wrapping because you have like almost like a crosshairs in a bow or a gun or a scope. You can see it, and then you start laying it on your hook based off of the bullseye or whatever, the middle of the crosshairs. And I'm going to come on up here, give that a snip. And I don't like to mess around cutting stuff too close to the hook because these are such good scissors, and there's nothing that's going to dull them more than things of that nature. Now I'm going to get my fingers real good and wet and pull this stuff down. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to take it out of the vise to get it right. Yeah, and I'm going to do any necessary trimming. because you don't want the hairs of the legs standing off to the side, because then it just doesn't, I don't know. It's not going to matter, because once they get wet, they're probably going to go down and backwards anyway in the current. But, you know, like I think I've said before, we're not selling these to the fish. We're selling them to the fishermen, and they can be picky, which I don't blame them. They got to spend their money. So the next step, sometimes people want to use thick resin. I didn't, because I have a back on here. But some people just go straight with resin instead of putting a piece of latex on top. So I don't have to. I'm using thin, and this is UV Craft resin, which we've already spoken many a times. We've already spoken many a times about how wonderful this resin is. It's a thin resin, but I mean, it cures beautifully. There's not very much of a smell to it. It doesn't discolor or yellow on you. And I got it on top right now. So I'm going to go ahead and try to cure it, but I remember now my flashlight needs new batteries, and they're triple A's, and I have nothing but double A's, so I don't even know if this is going to cure it. Katie, will you grab me my flashlight out of my room? It kind of semi-cured it, but as you can see, that's very dim. It's okay. This is the cheap light that I have that was like $5 on AliExpress. I have a $70 solar res that is absolutely amazing, which my daughter's going to get it for me now, because I tie in my bedroom at night. When I go to bed, I have a table that sits over my bed so I can sit up and tie at night, because I've got a huge order I'm working on, 113 dozen. I did the same thing when I just finished the 200 dozen order for the same company, for the same business. So I just try to keep working. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's enough hours in the day to get everything done that I've got to do. But once I get to the point where I get this done, I don't know, do I have my... Where is it? Is it this? Thank you very much, dear. Sorry. No, you're okay. And what I'm going to try to do now is, instead of painting it on, I'm going to use some of this resin, which is a bit thicker. Holy crap, that's a mess. And I'm going to try to lay a bead on there. And this is where it'll make or break you. Because if it comes out too quick, you're kind of going to get yourself in trouble. There it is, right there. Nice. That couldn't have went any better. And watch, it's going to smoke like crazy, because this is a strong curing resin, flashlight. And like I said, that's from the SolarRes company. This came in a kit called the Roadie kit. It had regular resin, flex resin, and thick resin, and this light. It was like, I don't know, right around $100. It was something that my son got me out of the blue. He's like, Dad, you said you needed resin, and I found this kit. You want it? And I was like, well, of course. And it was when I first started tying, when I didn't have resin yet. So it was very nice of my son to do. And there we go. Sometimes it takes a little bit more of an effort. You know, sometimes you have to cure it a few times to get it right, but it works. And now that I've got that to that point, I've got a couple of these cautery pens. Whatever you do, don't buy the K-Cute, because the batteries die, no joke, in like maybe 2 uses and your batteries are dead. And I don't care if you're using Duracells or what. It's just they go through batteries like real bad. My buddy Brian, the flysmith, warned me about that after I bought it. I had already bought it. I didn't know it until after I did it. And man, was he right. He goes, yeah, man, it's cool that you got one. He goes, but you're going to be very frustrated. He goes, because they go through batteries like crazy. And he wasn't kidding. All right, there we go, y'all. You know that I will take him and I will put it in the tweezer and bring it close to the camera for you. This is a freshwater shrimp. And there it is. See how the legs are standing down just like that? It turned out real nice. The segmentation looks great. Everything's really looking good on that, and I'm happy with it. So there you go today, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a like. And more importantly, if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to me. I can use the follow or the subs so I can start going live. But anyhow, thank you guys very much. God bless you all. Much love to you. Have a good day.